let's do it.
Welcome to Game of Nodes, a weekly podcast on the cosmos from independent validator teams.
Welcome, everyone, to Game of Nodes. You can see that it's a completely cut crew from the Game of Nodes crew. Just myself, Usurper, leading us off. The Frey will be joining us shortly. Let's see. Null has the sniffles, so can't join us. And Schultze is, I believe, on an airplane. So here we are. And with us today, we have Simon from Nois Network. We're going to talk a bit around randomness and the importance of randomness and all that kind of good stuff. So, yeah, welcome, Simon. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
So the Frey, so the Frey should be joining in a couple minutes. Why don't we kick it off and just tell me a little bit about yourself and your background and kind of how you got to this point to launching Nois, and we'll go from there.
Sure. I try to make it short. My background is software development. I studied mathematics, but was never good enough to be a scientist. So I started software development with always an interest in cryptography. So in 2018, suddenly everybody was coming around the corner with some sort of blockchain project, and I ignored this whole blockchain stuff for a long time because I was never a fan of proof of work in Bitcoin and all this energy burning stuff. So I missed a lot of the development that were happening in the meantime, and I was quite excited to see all this proof of work, delegated proof of stake, delegated proof of stake, this kind of development that happened in the meantime. So I started working at IOE, which is developing this product called Starname. Was a developer there. Met a lot of very good people in the blockchain space, especially Martin and Ethan, who co-founded Confio with me. Almost 3 years ago, we started Confio as a company that was bringing CosmWasm from proof of concept to a production-ready product. And this is what I'm still doing, maintaining CosmWasm and CosmJS at Confio. This is what I spend most of my time with. Along this journey, I've always been interested in randomness and making randomness available on chain and all this kind of stuff. So I started Nois as a side project, something that I do in my nights and weekends. But given that there's a lot of synergy with my day job at Confio, turned out it's a nice combination to do both.
And do you still work at Confio?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
So Nois is not a Confio project. I want to get this clear. This is important to separate. But I'm working at Confio 4 days a week.
Okay, that's cool. And then when did you start? When did you launch? No, it hasn't been launched yet. But when did you first start like putting code down towards it and kind of working towards these test nets and everything else that's been going on?
So the recent development is just 2 months old. However, the team that is forming right now is based around ideas that I published in blog post 2 years ago, where I figured out there is this DRAND project, which is a random number generator, a decentralized random number generator on the internet that has nothing to do with blockchain. However, from this DRAND project, you could get random beacons which contain a digital cryptographic signature. And those signatures can be verified using CosmWasm on chain. So I made a proof of concept and wrote an article about that 2 years ago. A couple of months later, someone brought that to Terra using Terrand as the name of the project, and build a lottery on top of Terrand. And this guy today is within the Nois team, one of the 4 co-founders. And so it started very early. It was never a priority for me to work on that. But recently, a bunch of people came together and wanted to make this real. And now we go one step further than everything that has been built before. So we're going IBC now. Which is the big change that was not possible 1 or 2 years ago. Or at least the tooling and the frameworks and everything was not ready.
So before, because I do have some questions around that component of it, like why is it a chain, and kind of what does that allow from an IBC perspective, and we'll get to DRAND as well, because the way I want to understand that relationship between Nois and that as a project, right, like the DRAND structure. So maybe for me as being a Luddite in this structure, tell me about why this is important. Like, why is randomness important? Why is it so difficult? And why is this special in that situation?
Right. So I see randomness really as a basic building block that every application developer should have available. There are use cases. The most obvious one in blockchain is lotteries or any kind of casinos. However, there's interesting use cases in the field of NFT shuffling, NFT creation, but also governance processes where you want to do a random sampling imagine you have a group of people and you don't want to select the ones who are the loudest, but you want to randomly select certain people to form subgroups for certain decisions. So there's a lot in the governance field. And also I had recently had conversations, people explaining to me that randomness is an important factor for more advanced cryptography, especially in the field of zero knowledge technology. So there's probably more use cases emerging. Now, I think randomness should be as easy as querying a local random number generator for a smart contract developer. However, randomness is very hard in a blockchain environment because everything that we execute on a blockchain is executed in a sandbox. The moment, right? Exactly, yeah. So the moment this executable software is able to access environment data, then every node will do that, and every node will provide different results to feed into the computation. And then the final result of the computation will be different, and everybody falls out of consensus. Yeah. So it's not only the case with randomness, but also with times, for example. If I access my local time of my computer as a node, then I will get a different result as someone else's node. Maybe not in the second part, but certainly in the fractions of the second. So accessing local times is impossible with smart contracts or any blockchain application. Just for times, this problem has been solved because Tendermint provides a time as part of the block creation. It's not a perfect time, but it's certainly good for a lot of use cases. But for randomness, this is not available from Tendermint. There are a bunch of other consensus mechanisms, consensus protocols where randomness is needed for block production. But in Tendermint, we don't need randomness in block production, which on the one hand is good because we don't need it to produce blocks. No dependency on randomness. But on the other hand, we don't get randomness for free as an application developer because Tendermint does not provide it. Yeah. So we want to solve this lack of this primitive by providing that on an application layer.
And I see No Man's joined. I assume that's because you were watching, even with this cold, you saw the shitty host job I was doing.
So what happened
fucking launched yourself into here.
Man, I couldn't sit there and just watch you flail by yourself.
Hey, I appreciate it.
I do have a cold, and I might be sniffing a lot, but I just jammed myself full of drugs and jumped on here for support. But also, I feel like potentially I've read up a little bit more on Nois and generally
Jesus.
on Simon. So I'm not saying you're doing a shit job, but read between the lines.
Also, Blockpain has joined us because he also felt bad on my hosting ability. So now we have tripled the number of hosts in this call because of that.
And,
Todd, welcome.
But to be fair, Todd probably is better, suited to make comment on any kind of, randomness or
any topic
security
of
anything.
this show. Every single topic on this show. Yes, that's true. Delegate with Blockpain. It's exactly right. Well, that's cool.
So Simon, welcome, Todd. Did you want some introductory comments from yourself? Do you have
No.
Were you thinking that Usurper was doing a shit job?
I only watched for about 2 or 3 minutes, and then
and hit the button.
I had to deal with my kids, so I'll be nice.
Thanks, Todd.
So the Simon, the application layer is DRAND, right? Is that? I think you were saying that earlier, and I was getting my stuff in order.
Yeah, so exactly. The randomness is generated in DRAND. DRAND is a protocol, and there's an instance of it which is run by the League of Entropy. And the League of Entropy is a consortium of companies that put their name out there, put their name on at stake without any blockchain, and they do multi-party computation. And make sure that the randomness that is generated is generated in a fair manner, in a way that no participant has information about the randomness until the point where it is published.
So how do they agree on the randomness? So DRAND it's like a network, right? DRAND,
Mm-hmm.
and then so these participants they generate some randomness and then all agree that it's not bullshit randomness?
Yeah, so the way it works at high level is they do a threshold signature using BLS. So they all sign the same message, which is defined by the protocol, which message is to be signed. And they have a shared public key. And as soon as a certain threshold is reached, they create a combined signature, the signature of this whole multi-party. And this signature is unique. So we can use this signature directly, hash it, and have the randomness.
So on what frequency basis are they creating new randomness?
Yeah, so the randomness is generated in rounds, and those rounds are counted. And one round is produced every 30 seconds.
Okay, so pretty often.
And it's
it really depends on the use case. If you have something with governance, that's certainly more often than you need. If you have a high frequency game, then that can already be not often enough.
And then would Nois utilize the existing DRAN network off of another piece, or those validators that would be part of, say, as a chain here, would you create a separate DRAN network that's only for kind of within the Cosmos type of idea?
Yeah, so in the first iteration, we'll use the existing instance from the League of Entropy because it is working very well. It is actually powering Filecoin. So the moment this random number generator has issues, a Filecoin blockchain will stop. So there's a lot of economic power behind making sure those companies produce the randomness, continue to do so. And yeah, we could create our own instance if we feel the need to do so. And there's certainly improvement potential, but for now we will use the existing one.
So is the League of Entropy, is that like open for membership, or is it just like a closed off, like a walled garden of just trusted people?
It is A proof of authority kind of system. So you will have to certainly have to go to them and explain who you are, explain why you're able to run a high availability, highly secure infrastructure. But they are open for new participants. They also want to increase the multi-party set. So I think it's reputable companies that run infrastructure other than DRAND as their day job, but they will be most likely be open to new participants.
So I had some questions. I'm not sure if Usurper already asked about this stuff, but not everyone may understand the significance of randomness in games and, the history behind some of what people have done wrong in the past. Can maybe you talk on that a little bit?
So what I explained before was why randomness in blockchain is hard to get. I could go a little bit more into what people do to try to get randomness, which often causes issues. So a typical example is people use the block height and block time for randomness, which is something that has very low entropy. So if I am an attacker and I am on the edge to decide, do I still want to join this game or do I not want to join this game? Do I submit my transaction or not? I can pretty much iterate through all the options for the next block heights, which is a handful of possible options where the finalization might take place. And also the block times have very low entropy. So I can just look at all the options and see if the computation results would be in my favor. And if yes, I join. If not, then I do not join. So that's an issue. There's other options where people use signature schemes to provide randomness in some challenge schema where they say, hey, signer, please sign this message, which I just generated for you. And then the signer signs this message, and then they use the signature for the randomness. However, the two popular signature schemes that we are using, which is SecP and ED25519, they both produce signatures that are deterministic but not unique, which means the signer can generate as many signatures as the signer wants and can iterate through signatures until the signer finds a signature that generates an output that is in favor for the signer. Because the signer might as well be a participant in your application. So those are basically the two ways to not generate randomness. Regarding why randomness is needed, I think there's many use cases. The most obvious ones are lotteries, casinos of any sort, but also I'm building a demo application just to prove the point where I'm doing Monte Carlo simulations. So I'm basically estimating pi by dropping random dots on a square and calculate the distance between the origin and the dot, which is fun. And just one of those things that you can do if you have randomness. At the Cosmoverse conference in Medellin the last 2 weeks, I spoke to a lot of people in the gaming industry who need randomness to define all sorts of user interaction, which I'm not an expert of, but I can certainly understand, hey, if a blockchain should feel alive and dynamic and like some environment that is coming with surprises and is exciting, then you don't want everything to be able to pre-calculate.
So I guess.
So how
Sorry,
Go ahead.
No, you go.
how will this be used across chains? And if you're doing a packet across a bridge, isn't that something that's revealed in advance then?
Yes. So the important thing is that you close your round and make no interaction possible at the moment where you commit to a certain round of randomness. So what you're doing is saying, hey, I want a randomness which is published after point X in time. So I know, okay, my round can lead up to point X, and Nois ensures that the randomness that I will get is not yet published when the point X is reached. And then it does not matter if you get the randomness to make your calculations within 1 second or 5 or even 10 minutes. Of course, faster is convenient, but it's important that you close your round, whatever that means in your application, while the processing is taking place.
Awesome. Thank you for explaining.
My pleasure.
So why then do we need an app chain? Why can people not just access directly from the League of Entropy? Did I miss this already?
No, we're just talking about, we're getting to that question because if it is through the League of Entropy today, it seems like it could be maybe contract based, but maybe that's wrong. And maybe as it grows, go ahead, Simon, tell us.
Sure.
Tell us, man.
Tell us.
It has been shown by Terrant on Terra that it is possible to implement that as a smart contract on a single chain. So strictly speaking, you can have a verification contract on every single chain where you submit the randomness. The chain cannot access the League of Entropy directly because it cannot do network calls. And the League of Entropy DRAND is not within any blockchain space, but you have to submit the beacons from there into smart contract blockchain. Now, the issue is that if you have all those instances for contracts that verify randomness, first of all, they all take a lot of gas. So what we have to do is BLS signature verification, which is heavy computation. So on some chains that is feasible, it might cost you $1 or $2 to verify such a randomness. But on other chains, the block space might not be sufficiently big to provide those randomness.
Okay. So basically, it comes down to if you're doing it from an SC. Did Simon freeze?
No. Oh, well, his
sorry.
video's
Was he still talking when I was talking?
No, his video's been kind of coming in and out, but his audio's been good. Go ahead.
Oh, can Simon hear me? Simon, can you hear me? I guess he's going in and out. Did he say something? I can't hear him.
No,
but it's
I can't hear you.
No.
Yeah, this platform sometimes is a little bit strange where you can I can see and hear other people, but not like someone else, if that makes sense. Or I can see them, but I can't hear them. Anyway,
you're on the Starlink, right?
Yeah, I'm on Elon's teat.
It's working well.
Oh, so he's busted off. It's funny, like this platform's like, oh, you got to use like wired connection and shit, and it's like I'm on wireless to a satellite. Still seems to work okay.
It's working pretty good. You're a little latency there, but it's really not that bad though.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably just me thinking, though. It's probably not really latency.
It could be.
It's me just going,
oh, man.
I was going to ask Simon a question. I bloody forgot it. So now when he
write it down when he comes back.
I'm actually writing notes here on a piece of paper. Oh, he's back. Can you add him up?
Yeah, sure can. There he is. He's back.
Sorry, that was my internet.
No worries.
Where are you situated? What country?
I'm in Germany, in the middle of Germany.
Oh, okay. Well, close to
Nice.
the notes. I didn't want to say like, where are you located exactly? Like you drop that on the fray and he'll tell you what pub he's at. It's I didn't want to throw you under the docks bus.
Yeah. So the company is in Berlin, but I'm not. I think Berlin is a bit too hyped. It was never my city.
Oh no. So
it's okay.
Is Nois, like, how do you say that? Nois?
Noise.
Noise?
Yeah, so the name is just coming from noise, like Rauschen, like this this signal stuff, what you can never predict what you get.
Yeah.
And we just dropped the E to make it a fantasy name, but you can just pronounce it like noise.
Yeah, okay. That makes more sense now. I'm like looking at it going, noise. Yeah, no, it's cool. So the Nois Network, is it a company like in Germany?
No, we have no company. This time we go fully activism mode with just a handful of individuals and no token sales and no company and no structure. So
Love it.
I mean, I'm not hiding myself, but I've been through the process of setting up a foundation and trying to get a bank account and trying to get a payroll up and everything. I've done that, and doing that once is enough. Especially since we don't have the demand to hire up a large team. We don't need fiat in the bank in order to get this project started. So we'll probably operate by just dropping tokens and get started that way.
The foundation that was started, was that the Confio? Like a foundation for Confio or Tigre?
Confio is the development company in Berlin where the team is employed. So we have 25 people in Confio right now. There is a Dutch foundation, which is Stichting Ocean Blue. That's the foundation behind the launch of the Tigre token. And this foundation is the one that was doing the token sales and is contracting Confio for building Tigre.
So why is it so important to do that behind a foundation?
Because the moment you issue a token, you get into the business of financial instruments. Mm-hmm. And you probably don't want to issue tokens and sell tokens as an individual. I mean, you can, but somebody has to pay the lawyers and make sure everything is nice and compliant. And
so it's all pretty sketchy.
Yeah.
You want to try not to get sued, right?
It's okay. It makes sense. It's just a lot of work. And if you're planning a big project, then this is certainly necessary. But if we can get Nois out of the door without anyone employed, without paying any external contractor, without having to sell a single token before launch, and just make sure the product is out there, people start using it, people enjoy it, and decide whether or not it's worth founding a company, then to me right now for this particular project, that's the better way.
So for the launch of the network, then is it going to, like, do you plan to just do a pretty low key thing and just sort of, have a decent, set of validators and then just throw it up like a smallish set of validators, get it out there, drop a token, and then just let people use it pretty much?
I think that is more or less the plan. to make sure the focus is on the users and the communities that want to use the product and not so much on any kind of marketing or selling the token or this kind of stuff. I mean, we are planning a bunch of cool things for the launch of the token, but try to do everything within the team of the 4 co-founders without that much external resources needed.
So
who is the? Oh, sorry. Go.
I was going to say the Frey has joined us, but Simon, so what's before we get to his story? I assume there's a payment or a fee structure that the app, like the clients that use the network, that would basically pay into that. Is that the idea? And do you think that like the Nois token itself will have a value to it, and would there be a minting type of structure? Or you think it's just really based on a fee structure because people are using the network and they're paying fees to be able to use the network?
Yeah, so there is an income stream for sure, which is applications using our service, the Nois service via IBC to get randomness.
Yeah.
They will have to purchase the token in order to pay for that service. In the beginning, it will be very simple as a pay-as-you-go payment. You pay for every randomness that you request.
Mm-hmm.
But we are also thinking in the direction of subscriptions, where especially applications that use a lot of rounds pay more, like a flat fee or somewhere between per usage fee and some flat fee.
Yeah.
Because we also want to make it attractive for games that need a lot of randomness, as well as governance applications who might only need a randomness once a quarter.
Right. And so the validator network itself, obviously they're dealing with the IBC structure and the transactions that are coming in through that piece, and they do have a role in the DRAND integration, right? So there's a request, or there's an integration there between the DRAND network and obviously this network that's generating that random number. And then there's a consensus from the validators to say this is the random number for this specific round, right? That they're agreeing that this is exactly what DRAND said, right? So there's a sense of completeness to say that this validator set has agreed that this is the number that we all see from DRAND. So actually the validator set itself is an oracle to DRAND, right? And they're presenting that data back. Is that right?
They don't have to decide on that, and they don't have to check that, because the verification if a particular DRAND round is correct or not is done in CosmWasm and fully automated, fully executed. Because each DRAND beacon comes with a signature, and that can be verified in CosmWasm. So it's not like Oracle, where different validators would have to double check if the data is really correct and query some external endpoint. At the moment they get the beacon, it is added as a transaction into a block. It's automatically verified.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So and we have bots who do this bridging between reading randomness from DRAND and bringing that onto the Nois chain. And we have an incentivization model for bot operators, which is basically just external clients that are running and observing the DRAND network. And every time a new randomness comes in, they submit a transaction to the Nois network and make that randomness available as fast as possible.
Cool. So the network itself, the validator network itself, obviously, I mean, if it's just running WASM, it's not really much of a value there. So I guess or could be able to grow, and it could bring DRAND in house, and you're basically building for the future in that sense, right? Because everything you just said right there, I understand it. It sounds like it could be a contract in Juno, right, or any other sort of CosmWasm type structure. But you're building it as a way for future capabilities.
Right. So there is the MVP can be built as a contract on Juno.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. However, there's tons of optimization potential that
Sure.
we already have listed when doing that on our own chain. So the whole verification process could be speeded up by using a different WASM compiler. We could have crypto APIs who are providing the verification functionality for BLS verification in a way that is much more efficient. But right now, the most time we spend regarding our chain is thinking about block space, how we utilize block space, how frequent our blocks should be, how much block space we need, how small we can make blocks in order to get high frequency blocks. Because we want people who submit or end their round and are waiting for this randomness to get this randomness very, very, very fast. Because the time that it takes to process the randomness is the time that a user is sitting in front of a computer, staring at the spinning wheel, waiting for a result. Right. And we do fight for every 100 milliseconds that we can get in order to speed that up. And being able to have full control over our block space right now, just what is in there, but with upcoming prioritization of transactions and even with ABCI even more flexibility on how block space is utilized, we see much more potential for the future there.
So, Frey, welcome. Let me update you on the what's happened in the last 41 minutes. This started as a 2-person call, and then Null jumped in because I was doing such a bad job. Then Todd jumped in because Null was doing such a bad job. That's correct, right? So far.
So you've already explained everything there is to be explained. Then.
Well, that piece right there around why a chain versus a contract was very helpful. I think I get it for this in this small period of time right here. Yeah, it's cool.
We've basically just been here, like, slamming Simon with questions.
That's really what it's been. It's been our most educational episode by far.
I mean, that kind of sounds like, if anything, the podcast is improving without my presence. So,
I will say that when I launched it, I couldn't remember what our tagline was, so I just skipped it. I was like, "Hey, welcome."
Hey,
I forgot. I don't think I even said Game of Nodes. It's just like, yeah, hi, we are.
Were you nervous, Yusuf? Were you having a little nervous Nelly moment?
I wasn't nervous. I know I could keep Simon entertained for at least 25 minutes. I was worried more that this would be the shortest episode that's ever happened. That was really what
you kick Simon off after an hour. You're just there by yourself, just like
that. I would just shit talk. I would shit talk 2 of the 3 of you for the next hour. That's what I would do. I would just rail into both of you. Todd gets a pass.
Yeah, well, probably.
Yeah, you know.
I mean, yeah, fair enough. We moved back an hour because Noel was ill and I had other responsibilities,
Football.
And then just blew straight through that time limit anyway.
Too funny.
Yeah, as everybody knows, I am a very big football fan, and I was at the football. Let's go with that.
Is that definitely what you were doing? Is it?
I was 100% at the football. Football. That's me. Football. Love the football.
I love that scene
in contact with the foot, when the ball is not in contact with the foot and is in the air. Both of those times, love what they're doing there.
I love that scene in Trainspotting. What are you doing? Football. What about you? Shopping. Probably got no idea what I'm talking about.
I do.
I think this may be like the one time ever that a movie reference has gone over my head.
Really?
I don't recall what point of the film.
They're at the club,
I don't recall
and the girls come up
film.
to them at the club, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" And the boys are like, "Football." They were talking about the girls, okay. And the girls were talking about the boys, and then the boys go, "What were you talking about?" And they're like, "Shopping." Oh God.
Yeah, I guess I only really remember the traumatic.
It's not nearly as funny when you have to explain it.
It's not.
It kind of sucks that now they've had to do that.
Yeah, sorry about that. So don't let me interrupt. Like, should we continue asking
Well, I
questions?
feel like you really want to know
of Simon?
some cosmosm shit. Are you more interested in the randomness or the cosmwasm?
Well, I'm wondering, like, so I put some questions in the spreadsheet. I don't know if anyone's read the spreadsheet, but I kind of thought it might be good for the non-devs to actually like do some kind of foundational stuff on randomness. But I don't know if you guys have already kind of covered
Yeah, more or less. That was Todd's first question.
You've already
He
done
said,
that?
for the plebs out there, why do we need randomness? His exact words.
Why is it hard?
And
Yeah.
what
Yeah,
happens
why
if
is it
it goes
hard?
wrong?
What happens when it goes wrong?
You always win the poker hand.
28th of July.
So
28th of July was actually a test of Juno's ability to create a random beacon via the process of
works.
app hashing.
Wait.
It turns out it does work.
So how about
it's really hard to do because you have to use auth Z, but you do get a random hash out the
this will
end.
be interesting for the Frey. Why don't you recap your questions and I'll see if I can answer them.
This should be good.
Okay, I love that. Right, so Null, why is randomness important in a blockchain context?
Firstly, because reasons.
Reasons.
No, so from what I understand, so we need things need randomness, and it's just hard to generate. Well, difficult to generate reliably, randomly in a blockchain. So casinos, obviously, games need randomness. Other things need randomness, and it's just hard to generate. Is that the question?
And
it's pretty good.
right, okay, yeah, fine. So we got some decentralized applications might need randomness. Yeah, okay.
So you're saying why specifically does a blockchain?
Why is randomness so hard to come by in a blockchain context? What's the challenges? Why is it something that we even have to talk about rather than just like generate it? And
because of lack of entropy in a blockchain, and because the smart contracts can't reach outside of their little contract environment, their little VM, so they have to rely on things that are available to them. And I think Simon said the things that could possibly generate randomness is the block time and the block height, but they're predictable, and thus you can work out a handful of combinations of what they may actually result in, giving you the advantage of being able to predict it somewhat and then cover your bases in, if you're doing something that requires that answer. So the true randomness can't be generated inside the blockchain.
Right. So why would I not just import a library and just like do it in a smart contract?
So reasons. That was
trick question.
So when you say a library, what do you mean by a library? Like a randomness library?
Well, you can generate. So obviously you can generate.
I know
any number of ways of generating in a general purpose.
I know what you're getting to. So to do that inside inside the blockchain to get randomness that is truly random, then that will give everyone different answers, and you can't commit that state to the blockchain or you'll app hash everything. Is that right? Did I win? Do I get a fluffy teddy?
That's 100%
right. You've won the game of explaining back the situation. Very, very well done. Very well handled. Simon must be an absolutely excellent teacher, because that evidently only took the 28 minutes that I was gone to explain all that. So
he's a good teacher. I have
to be fair, Simon explained it in much better detail and context and less stupid words. I mean, I feel like Simon's just sitting there cringing a little bit. He's like, it's not really what I said.
Exactly what I said.
No, it's pretty good. I mean, it captures the most important point.
Hey,
so.
If all we do at Game of Knows is we have the geniuses we bring on, they're fire, and then the general public, they're ice. We're just a lukewarm water in between.
Right.
Then
just a little bit of that rubs off. I think that's pretty good, right?
Yeah, 100%.
I actually wrote down the main points on my piece of paper for article on the whole situation. So.
You knew that the phrase quiz was coming.
The phrase quiz time.
I mean,
It was coming.
Shit, somebody's
It was
going to ask me
coming.
about these.
so my notes don't consist of much. So it's like it literally says DRAND, League of Entropy, and then under Y app, I have like it can't be
Y
implemented in a smart contract
There you go.
properly. And then I was like, I hate writing notes. Fuck it, I'm not gonna do that.
I'm done.
Yeah. But I think
Show notes. Cross through cross through the to-do list item.
this is why Usurper takes
Well
care
done.
of the show
Well done,
notes, and I don't. I mean, I usually write show notes down in the thingo, but I feel like they just get ignored or are too far off to the right to be seen.
Where do you write them?
Go back
In the shared notes.
I think that's a lie.
Yeah, I write it on the right-hand column of the the row C.
Column XXXXX. Yeah,
Yeah, well,
exactly.
Yeah. I was gonna say like H.
Keep scrolling. They're out there.
Yeah, you just gotta keep scrolling and you'll see all Niall's hard work. Yeah, I believe it when I see it. So have you talked about Cosmos?
We haven't. We talked about.
We haven't. But
No,
before we do
please.
go on to Cosmos, sorry,
but
You have something else.
we haven't got
Please.
there. Yeah. So I just actually I wanted to talk about the token just a little bit, because that's what.
it's Niall's tokenomics hour.
DJ.
Here we
No,
go.
well, I just.
There's not going to
What's
be a
the
stable
alpha?
coin. Calm down. There's not going to be a stable coin.
So yeah,
Oh wait, Simon, is there going to be a stable coin?
I mean,
don't think so.
I think I'm like a lot better about talking about that stuff than like why randomness. But anyway, so with your token, you say you're just going to airdrop a bunch of shit out there, right? Just spray it around.
Well, yeah.
I don't think that's exactly. Is that what you wrote down? Is that what did you write? Did you write spray it around in your notes over there? I don't think that's exactly what came out.
Well, I had a couple of pointy questions. I'm like, are you going to do inflation? Like, do you need inflation? Are we trying to encourage people to like, do regular users even have a use for this token? Or is it, for me, it's just going to be people who want to run apps and stuff that want to use the noise of the network will want the token, right? So I'm thinking like, what's the value proposition for users? Is the demand going to be that great that it's a good punt for people, or like, do you even need to distribute it? Can you just not sell it and then have can you not just create a pool and people can just buy it out of the pool and then the validators collect rewards and then sell them back to the pool? So I'm just wondering, like, is it the type of thing that actually needs a wide distribution and staking? Is the basis of my questioning.
So right now we're really focusing on the product, and the token is a little bit like, tokenomics, you do that later. And I think there have been a number of decisions that define the tokenomics. And first of all, is we don't do any pre-sales. Second is there is a native demand for the token through the service that we're offering. So in contrast to many other tokens, there's actually a business case for it. So that also might create a speculation case. So you can buy the token in the hope that it is worth more later. I already said that.
You said you're not been doing sales. Yeah.
And one thing that we want to make sure is we have an inflation model that rewards all the network participants, and those are not only block creators. There is inflation that goes to validators, but there's also inflation that is going to the League of Entropy. Because they are doing a fantastic job in running this infrastructure, and they should have a share, even if it's a small share, in the rewards generated by this project. And not only the rewards, not on the monetary aspect, but they should also have an ownership aspect and a participant share in Nois, to make sure that whenever there's anything ongoing on DRAND and the League of Entropy, they make sure they have aligned interest with Nois and make sure we are talking and we know what's going on well in advance, and they are not making any crazy changes that they are discussing between the League of Entropy and Filecoin as the biggest user, and we only hear about them when it's too late. So, for example, the DRAND team is working on shorter block times, round times for the randomness in the order of magnitude of 5 seconds instead of 30 seconds, and all this kind of stuff is good to establish a close relationship with the League of Entropy, as long as we use their service and collaborate with them. And there's tokens that should go to the bot operators that provide the bridge between the DRAND network and the Nois blockchain. So inflation should go in multiple pots, so that is going to happen for sure. We will make that token available on some decentralized exchange in order to allow people buying it who want to use the service or who want to have the token for whatever reason. And yeah, that's basically how far the thinking is for now.
Is it possible to have a non-inflationary mechanism and only have like the distribution of the like transaction fees for the use of the network go to those separate pots? The reason I say this is, so I'm pretty like, I just like, for example, the way Kujira did it, even though it keeps every validator broke, in that they're
For
not
now.
sort of, for now, but they're not trying to like be something that they're not, if that makes sense. Like the inflation is like, it's the it's basically writing its own destiny. Like your inflation pumps your coin up to the users because they want to get that return on the coin, right? When it's really like, to me, it's a pretty disingenuous system because it doesn't value the coin based on its use cases and its actual usage at all. It only, people want the coin in the short term because it's got inflation and they can get a return on it and dump it back into the the pools, and it's got like a limited
lifespan.
Lifespan, because once the pool rewards and stuff run out, and once the inflation goes down the chain, it just ends up being a dump coin, and then the hype around it fizzles out. Whereas, in my humble opinion, I feel like it's better to not have the hype to begin with, and then just have the token based on its usage and the actual income generated from it based on a demand for its usage, not an inflationary mechanism that makes people want it, because it's a bullshit mechanism that just pumps up projects so people can dump on the pools.
Yeah, but then you're implying. No, you're completely right.
He's right.
But you're implying that the inflation goes to delegators who do nothing else than buying tokens, putting them somewhere, and waiting for more tokens to come back. The inflation model that we are thinking about is making sure the inflation goes to those points where value is generated. Inflation should go to a development team. Inflation should go to validators who run the infrastructure. Inflation should go to the DRAND network. Inflation should go to bot operators in a way that the inflation is much closer in line with the value generated by the particular parties. And I prefer a token model where you start with a very minimal initial supply, because why dump a massive initial supply on top of anybody when there is little value created. But increase the supply, start with something small, and increase the supply as the value increases.
So, I mean, I guess that sort of goes back to the question of why can't you just distribute the fees to those parties instead of actually have inflation to those parties?
Yeah, because fees, everybody wants zero fees, and we have fees that are barely enough to protect spam, and it's a race to zero. And we are seeing that all over the place, and the fees are not, at least are not the network fees. Maybe you have to differentiate between network fees and product fees, and
that's what I mean. That's what I mean. The usage like of the fees. Product. Yeah, because that makes sense. Then that means that, like, you know, if the chain sees usage, it adds value, and if it doesn't, then it doesn't, and it should just die. So
yeah, absolutely, 100%. I think you can implement it with inflation by burning the product fees that you earn as a chain. So you have income and tokens that are taken back.
So possibly a dumb question here then. This sounds like if stakers going to be rewarded at all, is it still going to be a proof of stake chain, or is it going to be a kind of custom inflationary model that isn't really proof of stake, that is something different? The tokens that are in supply are liquid, and the validator bonding mechanism is something more like a foundation bonding or something, and it's more about just direct security.
No, we'll be working with Cosmos staking module pretty much 100%. Just not all the inflation goes to the block producers and the delegators. Right now, I think in the module, the distribution module, that gives you one parameter where it says, okay, you can give like 5% to your community pool. But
it's like community pool, and then everything else is just like default.
Yeah, and
right?
default
like
means 95% or even more go to block producers. And I question that 95% of the value is generated by block producers. We love our validators. We also appreciate the staking mechanism. That's all great, but why not 50% of the inflation go to producers and delegators, and the rest to someone else, or 60 or 40?
A naive question would be, given that, what's the? Isn't there like a okay? So you could obviously modify the staking module, which sounds like what the plan is, but you could also presumably write that in CosmWasm and implement it as a privileged contract within something like TWASM, right? That would be another way of going about implementing a custom staking system that didn't really have to rely on the way the SDK does it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. We have done that in Confio. We have done that for T-Grade. That all works, but that is a lot of work. It has been implemented in proof of engagement. It works entirely different. It completely swaps out the staking module from Cosmos SDK while continuing to use everything else. And I want to focus on the product and not on the token distribution. Mm-hmm. So I'm more leaning towards ideas that have been developed by the Stargaze team, where they have a distribution module that is more flexible, but overall works like any other Cosmos SDK chain. They just say, yeah, we also have an inflation share that goes here and an inflation share that goes there, and distribute it differently, which I think makes sense. It's a good compromise between a little bit more flexibility without having to reinvent this whole security aspect of staking, as well as the tokenomics and everything that users are used to.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, that's interesting, because I was kind of interested to hear you go in that direction, just because I assumed with the with the kind of T-grade connection that it would be like, oh, well, there's actually two, but by the sound of things, it's too much distraction from the product.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm completely open to those ideas, and I'm talking with all kinds of people about how to use the flexibility that Cosm Wasm provides to replace those core modules of Cosmos SDK. And for each of those modules, for each of those slots, have a variety of plugins that you can choose and say, yeah, I want to have this type of staking, and I want to have this version of the bank, and I want to have that sort of vesting accounts, and have a mix and match system. However, for Nois right now, it would really just delay the launch of the chain, which is certainly something that we would absolutely avoid.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Because I guess so. We've been working on this HAL thing for a while, and something became really obvious to us, like really quickly, was that we needed IPFS nodes. And then you kind of go, all right, but they need to be paid for, and the validators, I guess, are going to have to run them. So like, what we the kind of thing that we started looking at was TWASM for that, because obviously we're all smart contract developers mainly. Like that's the rest of the team. I'm the only one that's really done any SDK work, and like the SDK is, I think, quite hard to work with compared to CosmWasm. So it was one of those where we were like, okay, well, probably TWASM represents a pretty good compromise from where we're standing, albeit you got to kind of start from scratch, right?
Frey,
with the things you're
what is TWASM? Can you explain for people?
Well, I mean, Simon directly worked on it, right? So Simon could also probably explain it better than me.
Yeah, so I did not directly work on it, but it's basically a module in T-Grade that is T-Grade specific, that is part of the proof of engagement implementation. And proof of engagement is a reward or inflation distribution mechanism that is based on the idea that there are no delegators and only validators stake their own tokens, which belong to them. And there is reward distribution based on engagement points, which are collected by any sort of contribution to the ecosystem, and then are assigned by a committee on chain. And those engagement points then allow you to earn part of the rewards.
So you can see how that would be generalized. That if you're providing storage, Todd, you could say, well, okay, well, it's kind of the same in that you have a set of validators who are providing storage. You can then, I mean, Arweave and all these sort of folks have already long solved the kind of prisoner's dilemma element of how you prove the content, the game theory component of how you prove the content is alive. That's quite trivial within the kind of economics of it. And so then it's actually a lot simpler than proof of engagement to do infrastructure-based stuff that sort of relies on the validator set but is outside of consensus, I think, basically.
Yeah, there's a lot of chains that have that problem right now. I mean,
yeah, exactly. So it's this kind of that, like, oh, I'm just sending proofs that this stuff exists. Oh, that's doable in an end blocker, right? It's that kind of use case, essentially, which has been interesting from the start. And I've been bugging Ethan with questions about it for some time, but it's not been a thing that it's taken us so long to build what we're building that it's not really been a problem until we're like about to launch, and we're like, oh yeah, that problem that we were like, we still don't have any IPFS nodes. What are we going to do about that? Yeah,
for sure.
Do we know how to incentivize it in Cosmos? No, not yet. But well, we do know how to. We just haven't made it. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, now you're muted.
Can you tell me something about T-Grade with the validators can stake their own tokens? What does that mean for the validator? Like, does that affect... It doesn't affect anything, does it? Like, you can have no token staked to yourself, right? Like, it doesn't affect your rewards and it doesn't affect your voting.
Yeah, it does. So the rewards that you're getting is calculated based on both stake that you put at stake and engagement that you provide. And the base idea is that if somebody who's very established, who's sitting on a large amount of tokens and puts a lot of tokens at risk to make sure they do their job properly, they can get a high reward. And a newcomer who's just coming in, who's not having that much tokens, but is very, very engaged, doing a lot for the community, can also earn a lot of rewards, making worth the effort of spending all this time and energy into this ecosystem. So it's really those two components, and then there's a reward calculation based on those two inputs.
Is there a formulation that's available for that?
There has been a white paper that was published, which contains all the basic ideas and models, and the curves that are used to generate the rewards based on the two inputs. But I'm not super familiar with the details of how the chain is running at the moment.
Yeah.
Since I'm not really into the T-Ray team.
So what's your main team within Confio?
Yeah, so Confio grew a lot in the last 2 years. We are 25 people now, and I'm focusing primarily on the public good stack, which is COSM WASM maintenance and COSM JS maintenance. COSM WASM is the smart contract stack, and COSM JS is the low-level client-side library for app builders. So that's what I'm focusing. I like the low-level stuff. I don't enjoy the product questions too much. I don't understand markets. I don't understand users.
Same.
I love that.
Mean you don't want to
Same.
talk. Does that just not mean you don't want to talk to users? That's a different thing.
I love the brutal honesty. I'm just like, I don't understand them. I like the code, man.
Yeah, all these irrationalities.
What? And Twitter? I'll never understand Twitter.
Guys, do you think we're at that time? Can we thank Simon and move on? Have you said everything you'd like to say, Simon, or is there anything else you want to bring up while you're here, man? You want to tell us, how pretty we are or anything?
No, just thank you very much for the invitation. And
look, man, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for all your hard work.
Yeah.
Like the number of projects that you're a part of. Like I guess like also like from the perspective of like being on the core chain of a team where we're kind of downstream dependency, and like we have to, whenever I get a message from Simon, I'm like, fuck, that's my reaction, because I'm just like, oh no, what is it? Like I see it pop up on my phone and I'm just like, well, whatever I planned on doing today, I'm not doing it today anymore. And then when sometimes it's just something completely harmless, like, oh, by the way, you did something, and I was like,
yeah, sometimes we have security issues to share.
Definitely, man.
Every once in a while,
yeah,
right?
Like I remember like Alp, who also works at Confio. I ran into him. I saw him at a conference, and then he came up to me a little bit later and was just like, "Hey, do you have time for a coffee?" And I was like, "Oh no."
No, I don't.
Anytime anybody from Confio wants to talk to me, I know something bad is about to go down.
Was it that bad?
Well, we had to quietly leave. We had to quietly leave and then go fix it, didn't we? It was one of the things. It was in May. It was like one of the exploits that came up just before version 1.
Yeah.
We had to go back to our Airbnb and fix it and patch it.
Nice.
Man, I have to second that. Thank you so much for all the work you and the Confio team do. We wouldn't be.
Yeah.
The ecosystem wouldn't have even a fraction of the value it's got now without COSM WASM and you guys working hard on it in the background. And I feel like there's not a lot of recognition as well in that part. So you can have it from us.
Thank you very much. It's really a pleasure doing that stuff and seeing so many people using it. So that has been one of the learnings from Cosmoverse. There's so many people who are using COSM WASM now who I never see because it just works for them. They don't have issues. I don't hear from them. So it's really amazing how the Cosmos ecosystem is exploding.
Agreed.
Thanks again,
Cool.
man.
Thanks,
Peace.
Simon.
Thank you.
Yep.
Bye.
You bet.
Thanks, Simon.
Where's
That was good.
Where's that thing?
Listen, let me just catch you up on the whole situation.
Professional.
I was kicking ass on this thing by myself, and then I think Null felt bad about it and got involved. And then I asked Todd, I'm like, it's only the two of us. I'm like, what are you doing? Come on in. And Todd joined, knowing that I was kicking ass. I mean, you can go back to the tapes. I'm like, we have this on. This is recorded, right? So we can actually.
I will go back
So we.
and check it and then make a judgment.
No, he was doing great.
I did
He
forget
was
the
doing
name of
fine.
the show and our tagline and our guest and your two names. But other than that, I kept it moving. So
That's not bad
It's not
going,
bad.
really. And you know, it takes a lot of time to get to the level of slickness and
32
professionalism that I've
episodes is what
achieved,
I've heard,
where
yeah.
I could just turn up and say the same line every episode, no matter how badly we've been rugged on the intro. Like it's a real
I mean,
skill.
it's in the notes.
Um,
Like it's right there in the notes. It says
and also to my
in big letters. How can
to
you miss
per-
it?
do you know the funny thing is actually that the one that Null's written it, I think Null wrote that.
I
in
did
the
that
notes.
because that was
That's actually not the correct. That's actually not the correct topper for the show. It's not
Well,
the
that's my
correct intro.
version.
It's a weekly podcast.
to my credit
Hello,
and
everybody. Welcome
and
to Game
to-
of
oh
Nodes,
the
a weekly
weekly.
podcast.
Oh,
to my
yeah,
credit
I think
and to also to maintain the integrity of Game of Nodes, I didn't even open that spreadsheet. So that's what any of you would do, right? We would just ignore that spreadsheet completely, and then afterwards, oh shit, all these notes are in there. I actually looked at that. There you go.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
So I've just realised one of the talking points
Yeah.
this week is relevant to Simon, but he's gone now. So he's gone. We'll never see him again.
Forever.
Probably. Who was that guy? Did one of you guys invite? No. So I'm gonna stop making jokes like that. Speed. But so a talking point I want to bring up, which is actually I put on the sheet, and then I remembered Simon was on, and I was like, oh, when shall we speak about that? But is Larry, who was on the show the other week, has been doing some preliminary work and has actually done a surprising amount and made a surprising amount of progress because he's a shadowy supercoder who apparently doesn't ever sleep on CWSDK, which is the can we just have Cosmos modules as smart contracts and just run those suckers?
talking about that
and
just
talk
the
to
other day,
Tendermint.
Yeah, with him, right? we
Yeah,
were talking about
yeah,
timelines
exactly.
and everything else. Yeah.
We're literally talking about like, hey, is this possible? Is this the thing? This seems like a thing a lot of devs want. And he was and then he just like woke up one morning and was just like, well, I guess
I got some time before
and
lunch.
So
All right.
yeah, exactly. He had half an hour before
Well, I
lunch,
thought
so
he
he
said-
just implemented.
We
a
asked
bit
that, but he
where-
said like it would take 2 years, right? Or one of you guys, or maybe it was you, Frey, or him.
I think I said it would
Maybe
take
you
18
said.
months.
And
Obviously,
he was
we
like,
have a
it's a
different-
morning.
Work
It's
ethic.
fine. It's
like,
fine.
about 5 minutes. Yeah, well, so getting to feature parity with the SDK would probably take a couple of years. But whether or not you need every feature, I think
Right.
is the question.
Right.
And that's I think the premise here actually is that a lot of decentralized applications that might want to move into the interchain don't need all of those shiny features. And actually, given what we've seen of discussions around mesh
Yeah.
security, which is, to my understanding, my kind of layman's understanding of it, we can sort of call it sort of adjacent to what people were talking about as ICS version 2.
Okay.
So kind of like layering of security rented from other places, right? That kind
Right.
of idea.
Well, as I said, I asked Sonny to come back on
Um,
because I don't understand any of this shit. So it would be good to. I mean, I understand it.
Yeah, I keep wanting to talk about mesh security, but then I'm like, I know that you're trying to get him back on, and he will at some point actually come on the show, and then it would be a bit. But to be fair, we could actually get Jake and Sonny back on probably really easily.
Yeah.
We should just do
Yeah, I think I understand it at a conceptual level. I think the actual, like some of the intricacies of
Yeah.
it and how that actually works and everything else, I think would be interesting to I mean, it's nice as a presentation level, but when you actually get into it, like, how would this work, right? And governance and like those.
There's a lot of
there's some hiccups
stuff in the
there,
weeds,
right?
isn't there?
Yeah,
That's my
exactly. So
yeah, I think there's some details yet. I don't know if you've seen the implementation. You know, they knocked out an initial like proof of concept at Cosmoverse. If you look at the README and the documentation for it, there's like a list of like, hey, you should be aware that there are not solutions to these problems yet, and they need some discussion. And there's a big bullet point list. It's really interesting reading, and actually, it's like I say, it's actually quite readable. It's well structured. If you're a Cosmosm dev or whatever, you can kind of just have a peek in it, and that's
pretty cool.
Would recommend doing that.
yeah.
Oh yeah, it's super cool. And it's super cool that Larry is just like started knocking out this the first part, which kind of Tendermint
right
connection part.
So that means what's so if that Cosmos SDK can be replaced by WASM, right? And if mesh security and the other types of things are WASM driven types of solutions, the way I understand it, then what is the value of the Cosmos ecosystem? Is it it's kind of centralizing around IBC protocol?
It begins IBI and ends with B.
But that's also going to expand outside the Cosmos, right? Because there's a push to say, hey, screw this whole thing around bridges, because fuck bridges, right? Yep. So if IBC then turns into a global standard of how ecosystems run, and the Tendermint piece goes away, then what we're really getting down to is a blockchain replacement of TCP/IP with IBC.
Yeah.
And then whatever tool set and structure people want to build so everybody's an L1. It doesn't matter. As long as they talk IBC, they're able to take advantage of that. And there's no winner. IBC is the winner.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's no ecosystem winner. Like that idea dies.
I mean,
right? Is that fair?
Yeah, I think if you go all the way back to like literally episode 1 or episode 2, I'm going to call this. I'm going to call this there will be a clippable quote of me really time ago, a million years ago in crypto years, just saying the only bit of Cosmos that will survive is IBC, and it will come to dominate. That's my bet on the Cosmos ecosystem, and it always has been about. But what I'm surprised by is how quickly now the conversation is moving to taking that chunk, taking the IBC bit and really generalizing it. And you're seeing that from on one hand being pushed by like Confio and these sorts of people who are sort of working very heavily on the Cosmosm side of things. You're seeing it from Strangelove and Jack's team and all those guys who are trying to bring other ecosystems into the IBC verse. And you're seeing it from obviously Informal, who are basically built IBC Rust, which is a standalone imported into your Rust project that is going to be a blockchain, and you can do stuff with it. And that's like there's a number of different angles there which are going to become different ways of building an IBC stack over time. None of them correct, all of them very different. But like you say, like I was having this conversation with Jake the other day about how far we think it is away that you're going to be able to have like a viable IBC chain that's sort of bootstrapped from a team who are in the Cosmoverse now, that doesn't have Tendermint as the consensus engine, but it's sort of recognizably sort of a Cosmos chain in the sense of how we kind of think about it. But then when you kind of go and look at the GitHub, you're like, oh wait, none of this is a different consensus engine. It's different this, it's different that, it's different the other.
But wouldn't be
that's a little way off.
That's a way off. But wouldn't it be more likely that an existing chain adopts IBC and so therefore meets that same criteria just from the opposite direction?
That's going to be, I think that will be the big onboarding next into the IBC verse, will be other chains, sort of what we now call bridging, but it will be actually just joining the IBC verse. And that's going to be really exciting. Like, I don't know that it's going to make the Atom price pump, but it's going to be cool for the ecosystem of IBC, I suppose.
But nobody really,
and that's
but
really
nobody
cool.
benefits off that, right? Like, it's not like is that right?
the end user.
Let me
I
rephrase.
guess.
There's no centralized entity that 100% benefits from the use of IBC. Like right? That is a
Which is how you can tell it's probably a good thing.
yeah.
Right?
I didn't know. I'm saying it is a good thing. Yeah, for sure.
People
We lost
benefit
Todd.
from IBC
Todd,
by
what's
not
happened?
getting rugged.
Yeah, end users benefit, and nobody and few people other than developers who are experts in IBC are really going to make like loads of money off it. So it kind of suggests that it definitely is actually what decentralization is, and not what people talk about when they put up gov props wanting to increase the val set by
Right.
5, which was possibly my spiciest comment of this episode. So there we go.
What else is
I
going
think
on?
I definitely beat your ass with the spicy comment tonight.
Oh yeah, did I miss one? Did I miss a good one?
No, just
No.
general comments about
Okay.
chain
So-
economics.
I mean, your econ. Well, we've got a little bit of spice to cover as
We
well,
do?
actually, in kind of news of the week. So we got. Do we go for? Okay. Well, let's go for spiciest first. Tombstone.
Tombstone of the week.
Yeah, but I come into it completely unprepared because I
Oh,
forgot
fuck.
who it was. There was a
Shit.
Man, there's
was a
literally been so many fucking tombstonings lately that I've stopped caring
No,
about the details.
I saw
it was on a chain I'm not on though. I know
saw
that.
one.
It was on.
Yeah, it was. Was it on
Fucking
Loom
hell.
or Sif?
It might have been on SIF. It was on SIF, right? It was a SIF chain. Yes.
I think it was on Sif. So obviously, like we are taking the piss a bit, but like sorry about delegators funds. We're obviously like I think as we covered in the previous thing about tombstoning, it could happen to any validator. Like there are things that we don't understand about the stacks we use. But tombstone of the week, we've seen a validator go down Sif. They didn't, I think, initially notice that they had actually been tombstoned, which is
It's a common trend amongst
Easy.
the tombstonees.
well, I guess because maybe the thing is like again, like because I remember when I have tombstoned a validator on testnet, and I remember what happened was the alerting went, "You're not producing any blocks," and I was like,
Like frantically,
Interesting.
unjail. Why won't it work?
I just restart Cosmovisor. While I go check the memory, there doesn't seem to be any memory pressure because it's not doing anything. I was like, well, that's really weird. And because I think at that point we didn't have testnet mint scan as well, because
Right,
it was like a
right,
starty or
right,
something
right.
like that. So I was just like, what could it be? What could it be? What could it be? I think it was just Todd actually who's gone. Because he was just like, hey, has anybody else been tombstoned?
Just questioning.
But
just
Throwing
put
it out there.
Did anybody get tombstoned? And you're like,
Shit.
ooh, that'll be it. Won't
so
it?
I have to
And then
say
you
though
do
that
the
was
query.
then and this is now, right? Like, given the experience you have in node operating between then and now, I think if you've stopped producing blocks, you can immediately think of whether or not you've been doing sketchy shit that may result in a tombstone, and get worried about it pretty quick and check. Don't you think now? Like there's a difference between then and now.
This last one, I think this
Well-
one on SIF, I think that person brought up a new validate. Like they were moving hardware. They were moving
And
hardware,
that's-
and they just literally copied keys, starting it up, and oh shit, I can't do that. Like it was like one of those situations, right? I don't think it wasn't anything. It was just them, and the chain was moving, right? It was just like a oh shit, I can't do that type of situation. Right?
I would say that is sketchy shit.
That's not
just
sketchy
copy.
shit. Well, I mean,
Copying your keys? What did they stop?
Yeah,
you
yeah,
about? Like again,
I'm-
checklists, that type of shit.
checklists exactly.
But
right.
but what I'm saying is that like now we know if you are all of a sudden in jail, I
Yeah.
feel like you can do a quick recount of the last 5 minutes activities and determine whether or not you're going to be probably tombstoned.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I guess for us, like we just take the hit and we go down. We just stop the service. I usually disable it in
Yep.
System D before
Yep.
doing any maintenance. And that's actually, even now we've been on a remote signer now for about 18,000 crypto years, which is like, I don't know, 6-7 months or whatever. But even using a remote signer, like you're just like, okay, there's a lot of moving parts here. I haven't audited every bit of the code for TMKMS. I think I understand how it works. Do I want to bet my life on that? No. And the fun thing was, and I think I mentioned this in the other episode when we were talking about tombstones, was that like, you know, on a testnet very recently, I do have keys on a box because it's a testnet box, and I also run TMKMS, and I cycled out so when you submit a GenTX, you need to have the original key if you're reusing a box and you want to use the same remote signer, right? So I cycled in the old key to create the GenTX because I didn't do it on my laptop because I'm an idiot. Basically, that was my only excuse. I don't have a good excuse. I should have just done it on the laptop. But I can't emphasize enough that most of our non-testnet, I think literally all of our non-testnet keys and backups are in a bank vault. So this would have been even more of a pain in the ass if I had to go to the fucking bank vault to then like
figure it out
to get a key for a testnet.
Yeah, exactly. This is why so testnets, my level of paranoia is reduced to be like, look, quality of life. So anyway, we were bringing up this thing, we were recycling on some other network, and moved the key onto the box that we were going to use, and just went, okay, GenTX, then remove the file, right, and then when it starts, it'll actually generate a new one. Yeah. So bish bash bosh, you're done. What I did was I pieced this together afterwards. I had actually fat fingered the command to do what I normally do. Is I typically move the file. I just add .old on the end and then move it somewhere. And then when I'm sure that it's worked, I delete it. This is on a testnet. On mainnet, it is very much just never on the box anyway, so it doesn't matter. And we wouldn't reuse a box in that way. We would bring up a new box because we have scripts that can do that. But anyway, mainnet is very different testnet. Testnets were a lot less automated. So anyway, we got this up and then went over to, I was like, it's not signing. That's weird. And then went over to TMKMS, looked at the log, and it was just like, double sign detected, prevented. Double sign detected, prevented. And I was like, how the fuck? And then it turned out, I went back over to the other thing. And the command line instruction I'd run, I just fat fingered it. And I just like Control C. It just didn't stop or something. And actually, it was just the old key. So
it's easy.
Yeah, I think it was like a bash script that had a few instructions on it, and it must have errored on a previous line. And I'd just done like the classic thing of just putting set E at the top of the bash script and not thought, well, hang on, if this line errors, it's not going to move the old file, and then that will still be in place, and then it will restart the service, and I will think that it's restarted the service with the old file moved out of the way, generating the new file. Incorrect, because it failed because of my fat finger on my typo. It in fact errored out, and then I'm just like, oh, okay, that errored, restart the service, not thinking, oh, the problem is not the bash, it's not just like the bash script errored for some reason. I'm just like, oh, that's weird. I assumed Cosmovisor had just like barfed on start, so just restarted it, but it actually had never run because the script had exited because the file hadn't moved out.
That issue
doesn't add up to me. That doesn't add up.
It does, since it's scripted and it's like in a bash script. You don't know
when
that actually.
Separate node? Like, were you trying to just change your node from having that key on it to bringing on, like, to changing it from a local key to remote signer key? Was it one node, or are we talking about?
No, so it was already on. It's one node. It was already a remote signer key. This is just a testnet, but the network was bringing up a new testnet, and I was reusing the old box. But I'd obviously already taken off the private val key. That was already gone somewhere into the fucking never sphere. But then I wanted to create a GenTX, and I was being lazy because it wasn't on my laptop. So I put the exactly. I'm like, I know the correct version of the software is on this server. What am I doing? So I threw the priv val key up on that box, because then it will do the correct GenTX, right? Because you need the priv val key to be correct. So then issued it from that box, and then ran this like generic cleanup script. But at the top of the script, it errors out if there's a thing. I just didn't, because I use Z shell locally, so I'm just so used to seeing like the red X. If it didn't exit 0, I see the red X, I'm like, ooh. But then on the servers, I'm using a different shell setup, so I was
that's exactly what I was going to say.
There's like a bit of a comedy of errors here with like the way I was using the shell on the server. Minor mistake in a bash script.
Yeah, that's actually interesting because
and that's how you tombstone.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Is like I run a shell that if the last exit was not 0, it shits everywhere. Like it tells you like it's red, and you can tell like what the status is of the last command that's run. And I'm exhausted because I've been rewriting all of our Ansible stuff, so it's all up at our repo and all that stuff. And I've been pulling heavily from Schultze stuff and also from Polkachu stuff, and like just like rewriting it the way I manage it, right? Which is similar but different, right? Which is no big deal. And one of the things I haven't done is I haven't rerun and reworked all my ZSH stuff because I run primarily ZSH with like my ZSH, and I have like a specific kind of color scheme I use, and like just because it helps me when you're managing, like we have 80 machines or something like that between VMs and a bare metal or something like that, and when you get in that situation, it's really easy to fuck up. Like it's really easy to right now I probably have 25 shell stations open because you might be doing something with you got 3 nodes of this and everything else going on, and like you just lose it, especially in a VM structure because bare metal is a little bit easier. But when you we run VMs, vSphere for a bunch of stuff related to test nets and everything else, and when you get in that situation, it's really easy to forget what you're doing. And so as I'm running all these Ansible scripts, everything's moving to bash, and I feel naked. Like that's exactly what it is. Like you're exactly right. Like when you don't have some of those catch-alls that are in there, I think it's really easy to fuck things up, right? And that structure, like ZHH shells and like showing like massive red X's when processes fail. That's not like something that is out of the box. That's something you learn from 30 years of fucking other things up, right? Is really where it comes from. Boy, I know you guys.
Yeah, exactly.
He's looking for it.
It's 10:36 in the morning. Like that was a good story for 10:36 in the morning.
I'm not.
I know.
Looking to Roger,
I look like
I was.
You were. I know you were. That's okay.
Null's hovering over the fucking thing. He's
got to go to work.
Something funny enough that he gets a smile.
I'm not.
I'm not.
My hands are off the keyboard.
My hands.